Hello and welcome to Dungeoneered, a podcast dedicated to discussing Dungeons and Dragons. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Josh.
Let's do this. So Josh, last week we were creating your characters, or your character for the Lukewarm Open, and we were thinking about continuing it, because we kind of left off at a big cliffhanger that I don't 100% remember what it was, but we did leave off on a cliffhanger.
It was
remember?
It was a barbarian. No, it was a druid ranger. Druid of the Stars.
Yeah, I remember that.
Ranger Horizon Walker, because their group is somehow related to the stars, and learning of them and learning of the planes and learning of the other gods. And they were from the new continent, and they were coming. A group of them came over.
And did we decide if you were born on the new continent or if you were born on the old world, so to speak? Like, do you remember anything about the new world, or do you remember the old world? I think that's going to be a really important part.
See, I think it depends. I think if I'm going to be like an elf with something that lives long, then yes. But if I am not,
so elves in my world do live long, but not a whole lot longer than the average race. So.
I assume like 500 years.
Yeah, probably like 300 to 500 years, depending on the species of elves, depending on what elf they are and where they lived.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are certain societies that have a much harsher life comparative to other societies, so it kind of depends also where they're from.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess we should start there then. If it kind of decides a little bit on your race, what race do you see yourself playing? What race do you see?
I didn't really have any of that planned out. Do you have anything that you would like me to be? What's on the new world?
Well, the New World has a lot of pretty much all the same races that.
Okay, it's just unexplored by them, so it's not really a new world.
It's just unexplored.
Yeah,
it's a new world in the sense that
it's undiscovered.
The world we're playing on hasn't discovered this world.
Yeah.
It's also not even the new world, so this might help you. I don't want to do a bunch of spoilers because we're obviously playing a game as well in this world, but the new world's not even necessarily completely tribal, so to speak. So it's not like
I figured that from there was people that existed there. I've been figuring there's cities, societies, trading, everything going on there.
Yeah. Yes, but there is a vast majority of it that is tribal and undiscovered. Think of, I don't know a good real world explanation, but think of I guess South America in terms of there are jungle tribes that run around through the jungles, but there's also major cities in Brazil and Chile and all that stuff, right? So there's a dynamic, a different dynamic than the old world.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think would be the most interesting race to choose from this new world that would also make sense that they would be one of the ones hunting for the stars?
Well, there are several different tribes or even groups of people who look at the stars. One of the main ones is actually a group of giant kin, so to speak. So the giants, way back in history of my world, the giants made not constellations, but they essentially made Stonehenges around the world that mirrored constellations, because the giants believed that they were born from the stars. So giants often roamed the world looking for places where magical energy was closest to them. So it would match really well if you went with some sort of giantkin.
Yeah, I'll be a cloud giant.
Like a Goliath.
Yeah, I think that works. I think that's totally fair.
Yeah, a cloud giant.
Yeah, I'll just be a cloud giant.
No, but some sort of a Goliath, Furbolg even. I guess kind of fits under that realm. Those type of races work really well. But that's
would you be willing to go with me somewhere? Custom race. It's one that it's a group that exists in D&D and is giantkin, but is not a playable race. Fomorian.
Fomorian?
Yeah, they're the super ugly ones that have all the boils and pusses, because their whole thing is that they were used to be the most beautiful of giants, and they were arrogant because of that, and so they got cursed to never be beautiful again.
How big are Fomorians? I don't know. I mean, obviously it's my world. I can decide what I want, but like,
I think they're supposed to be slightly
D&D sense,
bigger.
you know.
They're like
So are we talking
taller
like
than
14 feet? Is that what we're talking
well,
about?
they don't. I don't think we need to be. I always had them as like less than a hill giant.
What we could do is if you were a Fomorian, we could like kind of link their curse to like you being cursed by the gods because you were like like your people were exploring gods outside of the traditional pantheon.
Yes, I love that because your gods are very controlling, like about who is okay following and who is not. So it looks like they are 13 feet tall. Now we could
13 feet.
We could shrink that, or just let me play a 13-foot tall individual.
I mean, I kind of like having you be a 13-foot tall.
Just know that this is a very real possibility as a player in your campaign. If my person ever dies, this is who's coming in.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like it. Yeah, we'll let you be 13 feet.
Cool.
That's fine with me. That's funny. I think that's. I mean, that'd be really fun to role play. Just how are you getting into a tavern?
Yeah.
How are you?
I guess I'm out here still. I don't think I can make it through that. Hey. And I like to think that my guy kind of has like that classic, like almost like barbarian voice, and like people will think like, or like, oh, you're from the New World. Oh, so you're like from like, what tribe are you from, or like something like that. And I'm like, well, I mean, what do you mean? No, like they think that we're tribal and we're backwards. And I'll be like, no, like I studied this in a university, like.
Yeah.
What do you mean tribal?
We should make you a wizard.
Like, no, I studied this from books and writing in a library at a university. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I love the idea of the muscle wizard who's supposed to be like a who's supposed to be like this big scary guy, but he's just like a wizard and smart. Mm-hmm. I love that kind of like a Goliath wizard or something. I love those concepts.
Yeah.
So a couple things. First and foremost, if you're a Fomorian, I mean, that could make you from the Underdark if you wanted to be from the Underdark.
No, I like the idea of this other world. No, this other continent.
You like the idea of the other world? Okay, and then so are you thinking more like a tribal?
No.
Other continent,
I think I'm from a city. I studied at a university. I think I was on some sort of like a research expedition. And I don't know how many people got cursed with the curse of the Fomorian. Could I or my group have done something so bad that the god just said, "Fine, your whole race will be cursed"?
I mean, yeah, yeah.
And if so, what did I do?
Absolutely.
How did I do something that bad?
So there's a couple things that I guess could relate to this that might be of interest to you. First, as you know, and people listening have heard mentioned, but the gods in my world are very, very controlling and very particular about who can be worshipped and who cannot be worshipped. So much so that there are 3 accepted pantheons, only one of which is allowed to be worshipped in the world. So you have the gods of light; those are the ones that are allowed to be worshipped. They are like the good guys, so to speak. You have demon lords who are accepted as the pantheon because they were not defeated by the gods of light in the big war. So they pretty much have no option but to accept that they exist because they objectively exist in the world. But they are heavily outlawed by most societies. There's a few places where they're not. Third is the neutral gods, and those are the gods that called the material plane their home before the invasion. So each god resided on their own plane, and they created armies to invade the material plane in order to take over its resources, so to speak. The gods that resided on the material plane are the neutral gods, so they're gods of like fire and like elements and things like that. And there's only 5 of them. So pretty much gods of nature, because nature in my society is often thought of as neutral because it can bring prosperity, but it can also bring great devastation. So it's thought of as neutral instead of evil or good. So there's a couple things that your group could have done. First, throughout history, the gods of light have, as you know from playing our game as well a little bit, have I don't want to say imprisoned other deities that existed, but have made their existence less known. So there could be ways of
We tried to free them.
trying to free them. That's a really big one. So if you wanted to free them, they're not imprisoned, so to speak, but they are just they're not really existent.
Well, so I think what happens is we followed their stars. We made it to their plane, learned of them, their beliefs, and who they are, and then tried to disseminate and spread that. Now, if you don't want to create all of those people, you could have part of the curse is that we forgot all what we learned. And so that could be like part of my persons is I want to find those stars again, and maybe I'll have like visions of the stars that I saw that led me to the gods partway through or some way through our campaign.
So, couple things on this as well. So constellations, as we kind of explained last time, are essentially the imprints of the planes, like the gods' planes. So if you follow constellations, you can find potentially keys or ways of getting to the other gods. We discussed that. It's also a big theme in this current campaign that we're kind of going through. So they're essentially little imprints or maps that lead you to the closest way of getting to the gods' domains. So if you followed stars, it would then necessarily lead to you discovering some sort of key or discovering some sort of method of getting to a plane in which those gods are not supposed to exist anymore. If you tried to open such a thing or use such a thing, the gods would be very unhappy. So your entire group or race would probably be cursed into a couple of options. One, forgetting everything and, waking up as something completely new. So, just completely new life. You're reborn, so to speak. Two would be to mix up the information you learned so it's no longer true, like misguide you and misdirect you. So you have misconceptions of things that existed. Or three, the people surrounding you would essentially not banish you, but think you're insane. Like they would do something that would make people think that you are not to be listened to. So if we combine two of those, which we were kind of talking about, which would be forgetting and then cursing you to be deformed. And a lot of my world is very, it's heavily inspired by 16th to 17th century Europe, where there's a lot of bad beliefs towards people who look different than you. So that could be something that happened. So thoughts on being cursed into looking like a Fomorian, but also kind of partially forgetting these traditions and things that you have discovered.
Yes, I definitely think that's what it is. And I think throughout the campaign, I would start having visions of constellations and start looking. And as one of our players already has constellation stuff that they're looking for, maybe if this character ever does get introduced, I recognize the constellation when he summons his spiritual weapon, and they'd be like, oh man, I know what that is, but I don't know what that is. I can't make the connection, but I've seen it before, type thing. Yeah,
absolutely. So there's still quite a bit, but we're getting a little long. Yes. But the last thing I want to discuss before Lukewarm Open ends is it's really important for me when I'm playing and when I'm DMing, I don't want to take Jonah's spotlight. So I don't want his story is kind of set how I want it. And I don't want your character to come in and all of a sudden be his story, right? So his story is heavily based on stars. But I think we can make yours different in terms of...
See, I didn't even
for his particular
pick it up that his I think it just became stars because that's how your world works. That's not really how the story is about stars.
Right. So I think we're okay because his story is specifically just finding his own god.
Yeah,
find his own god. Well, there are certain ways to do so.
Yeah, which I'm not finding.
One of them.
I'm more trying to find the ways to find the gods. So I might help, but I would not be my goal would not be met when he meets his goal.
I think too, what I would like to incorporate into your story, if you're okay with it, is more of like finding out what your ancestors did. Like there's something which we can discuss later, but there's something that you know or understand about like a curse that your people have been like put under. I think that would be a fun twist and divergence, is also kind of this narrative of trying to undo the curse or find the curse or find, how you can get your, people's traditions and memories back. I think that could be fun too. Thoughts?
I think so. I think they went further in their memory wipe. I think what they partially did as well was they removed our culture and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. And so you're trying to
that culture too? Regain the culture. And I don't know, like, I'm not sure if I'm like totally sold on the gods, because what if I'm like hunting for the gods, but not because I care about the gods or care about the freedom to believe. No, I just want to know. I just want my people back as they were, or to know what they were. Because that might not be worth getting back.
I love that. Yeah, and I think that's perfect, and it's a way to diverge from Jonah's story. So I like that a lot. So cool. We'll stop there.
Yes,
we still have more to do, but it's fun. It's fun making characters. I love making characters.
Well, onto the topic, I guess.
Heck yeah! Are we still in Star Wars universe?
No. I mean, we'll probably go back. We'll probably go back.
Way late.
Yeah, there was your favorite author is what we talked about last week.
Okay.
Micheal. This week we're talking more about Michael Moorcock and his worlds.
Heck yeah.
Specifically, a culture and people that have an incredibly interesting history and purpose. We're going to talk about Melnibone. Melnibone was part of Moorcock's world for his Elric series. Specifically, the main character is Elric of Melnibone. The thing that makes Melnibone so interesting, besides its appearance, is the Melniboneans. They are the people of the main character, the group he was defined by and the culture he was born into. Now, this is a continuation of what Moorcock was doing, where he was trying to create fantasy to be against or not samey with everything around his time. He wanted to go against the overplayed tropes of the time. He wanted the Melniboneans
unique feel.
Yeah, he wanted not just a unique feel, but also to dive into deeper philosophies and deeper struggles and things. And the Melniboneans were a huge difference to any of the like classic races that heroes were born from. Like you can think of like the Hobbits, and this will be nothing like the Hobbits.
Yeah, okay, got it. That makes sense.
For being
it's not like halflings and hobbits, where D&D rips off halflings or hobbits. I mean,
well, what I mean is more like the Hobbit race is written as, and their culture is written as this jovial, sweet, like they just kind of want to be left alone and just have a good life and
drink and party
and be happy. Yeah. And so like, they would not be a prime race to be antagonist in anything. This race would 100% be great antagonists. They're terrible people.
Oh my gosh. I just had some sort of random epiphany. That could be very fun for your character, even though I know you're going to say no already. What if you were a halfling and you were previously giantkin, but you were cursed to be a halfling?
See, I like the Fomorian angle. I like being super tall. I like the kind of weirdness of that. But I will say, I did think of something during your talk, and I do want you to put a note down. Could you write this down? This is for our next world that we build. I want
I'm writing it down.
Gods to first create giants to build the world.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yes.
I like that idea. So gods create giants and giants create the world.
Yeah. The cloud giants created the clouds and the sky and the atmosphere. The like cool giant stone giants created the world and Yes, but eventually the giants rebel, and so that will be like a major thing of our next world. I thought that was super
really fun.
An interesting idea.
It kind of reminds me.
We're so off topic right now.
The history doesn't remind me, but the you know, in Lord of the Rings, when they're like going down the river in the Fellowship of the Ring, and there's these giant, huge statues of their king.
Yep.
Like that's kind of would be really cool to kind of implement that kind of stuff. Where like they're these weird, like, you know, giant archways or, you know, like statues that are like completely out of place and people don't know about them, or like they do, but like just anyways, it's really cool.
Yeah, we might do an Attack on Titan like thing for that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But we'll go back to that later. For being such a central group, what they were known for was their horrible traits. They were powerful magically, and in being so, they believed that they were better than the rest of the world. They were known as a depraved and decadent race. Their lives and actions ruled by tradition. And since they were so advanced, a major part of their lives was purely in searching for their own pleasure and new sensations. They were even said to have a lack of morals. All of this combined to make a real group of a-holes. It was even said that they often found amusement in torturing their slaves.
Oh gosh.
This powerful society had some more interesting things in it, such as the part of what we talked about last week. Moorcock created this world with the elements of law and chaos being the major building blocks of the world. Well, just like the Force, like in Star Wars, there are different places with different affinities. Melnibone and its people tended towards chaos. This went as far as the Melniboneans serving the Lords of Chaos. Specifically, Elric followed Lord Arioch. These Lords of Chaos granted the city and its people much power over the years. Many would pray to them, hoping to be the ones summoned or be granted power by a Chaos Lord. Now, in Elric's time, this hadn't happened in many years. But during his time, 2 people became champions of chaos. Elric, as one of them, for Lord Arioch, defeated the other one, Irakun, since they were trying to take his throne. As the Sorcerer King of Melnibone were known for being champions of chaos, this individual, Irakun, wanted to restore Melnibone to its former glory. This is because at one point the Melniboneans ruled the world with their magical and technological superiority, not to mention their relationship with the dragons. A few human groups fought back, only to be destroyed and devastated, but some still survived and thrived, and that is partially thanks to what the Melniboneans did next. Over time, they developed so far along that they just grew apathetic, seeking only their own pleasure, as I said earlier. Because of this, they stopped fighting and doing things that weren't enjoyable, and started to atrophy, returning to their capital of Imrir. They had lost their curiosity for the world, and their population began to shrink. The society waned due to this atrophying, till it was mainly just the capital city of Imrir. This is where Elric came onto the scene, born into royalty of this dying culture that had grown complacent and didn't even see that it was dying. It definitely saw that it was lacking the world domination of previous generations, but many had grown comfortable with that. Now, a few, like the one that tried to take the throne earlier, Irakun, sought to bring about that domination once more, and he tried to usurp the throne. Elric never believed that the way forward and to grow for his people was through domination. He didn't want to bring that era of Melnibone back. Eventually, Elric realized, I need to leave Melnibone. I need to see what's out there to see how they have prevented the folly of our group, and maybe I can hopefully bring back the knowledge of the world to Melnibone and have us become not just an enemy of the world, but a major player within it. So he headed to the lands of the humans called the Young Kingdoms to learn of the world.
Well, I was gonna say, is his whole story like trying to restore his like country, or is it more like to try to divide, like to separate himself from his country? What's the idea there?
So it starts with this Iracun starting to try and okay, Elric is born with some sort of defect, some sort of that kind of weakens him, and he has to have this magical potion pretty much to kind of keep him going. During a fight, during a battle with some humans that had come to kind of ransack or raid Melnibone, he kind of gets sort of weakened, and Iracun takes his opportunity to try and kill Elric and take the throne. As Iracun is his cousin. The leaders of Melnibone are friends with, as I said earlier, dragons, but they're also friends with elementals. So instead of dying, Elric's soul calls out to the elementals. The elementals save his life. And he comes back and Iracun's like trying to lead, and he's like, no, I'm here still. But through all of this time, he kind of gets closer and has to call upon the Lord of Chaos, Elric. Because Iracun has called on another Lord of Chaos, which I might have been Iracun as well. It might have been somebody else. But the only way he could have the power to defeat him was if he had called on the Lord as well. So, long story short, he gets a special blade.
So it's a little bit more complicated.
Yes, it's very complicated. He gets a special sword, yada, yada, yada. And so but through all this time and all this things that he has to go through in his own nation, he realizes we are killing ourselves
now.
We're killing ourselves. We're so cut off from the rest of the world. Like, we don't even know what's going on anymore in the world around us. So he's like, okay, I'm going to go out there and see what's going on, and also hopefully learn how the human world, these young kingdoms, have all these nations so close to each other, and they're not just constantly warring. Like, why? Like, they clearly are doing something differently. Our whole idea is we can only exist with other people if we rule them. That's wrong.
Yeah, so he's just trying to discover something, a new way of
doing things. Once he discovers it, he's got to figure out how to bring that back, and how to change his whole culture. How do you start introducing that to a culture that's already averse to that idea to start with? Now,
got it. Okay, that makes sense.
It is, and the interesting thing is when he is out there, he discovers Melnibone has cut themselves off so thoroughly that all of their old enemies simply believe that Melnibone was destroyed, that Melnibone doesn't exist anymore. It's like if people from Atlantis started to destroy themselves, to discover and go around the world, and the world's like, oh man, Atlantis died a long time ago, and they're like, what do you mean? I'm an Atlantean. It's like that, but because that makes sense. Because Melnibone was such enemies of the world, Elric's like, it's probably better if I don't say I'm Melnibonean.
Yeah, well, and then also it kind of adds, I think it adds, like, story-wise, it adds to the idea of that this nation is like dying of its own accord.
Yeah.
Right? Its own atrophy now.
Mm-hmm. I kind of jumped around my notes to explain all that, so I think I might have finished.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Oh, I mean, if you want a spoiler, sadly, this never comes to fruition. And Elric is known as the last king of Melnibone.
Oh, that's sad.
Yep.
That's sad.
Well, it's worse than that. Because of the Lord of Chaos and how he had signed his soul over to them and has this... He, in the end, through the stories of the books, is the one to do the final sacking of Imrir, his city.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Yeah,
That makes it a little less sad.
It is a dark, dark fantasy story.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal.
In the end, he is the one to kill his culture and his people. So, I was thinking from this really sad story of Melnibone and Elric, we could create some interesting...
Make a sad story.
Well, I mean, we could make a sad story. We could make a group that tried to stand up to the gods or something, like a city or nation or something, only to be crushed down, or I don't know. What are you thinking?
Wasn't that that was kind of our idea, wasn't it, to make like a because we had that kind of building last week, didn't we? Kind of that we're building off of that a little bit last week or the week before, I don't remember, but a group that was like they're reborn, so to speak, and we're forgetting different, forget their lives.
So I guess we can just kind of flesh out.
Created that group. So I think we should just like make a civilization that maybe this group stemmed from or something like that was completely wiped away by the gods because they were. I even like because didn't we also make the idea of like you were like civilization was collapsed into the Underdark as like a punishment?
Huh? Say it again.
Was that us? Was that us? we made like we were talking about a civilization that rebelled against the god that was collapsed into the Underdark, correct?
I don't think that was this season, because I don't think we've talked about the Underdark at all this season.
Because I think that is what we should do. I think a group, like a civilization, rebelled against the gods, and they were collapsed down into the Underdark, and like they fell down into the Underdark, and the gods rebuilt the terrain above them, never to be seen again. Because I think that's really, really fun. I think that's a really cool notion. The question is who are these people? What did they do? And why did they go against the gods? Thoughts?
Okay. I think okay. You know what we did have, which I think is what we should create here? We had the people,
the demons,
that were slaughtered by the gods. Remember that?
Yep.
So the slaughter of the gods they slaughtered these people because they discovered how much the gods required them. So what was this group before?
Well, and I think we partially discussed about this too, but I think if I had to guess, if I had to make something, this is sort of stereotypical, I guess, though, it would be probably because like they believed they didn't need to worship the gods, or they didn't need the gods to be successful. That's probably the best thing.
I think that's what we decided, but I don't know. Like, I think there's so much more to build underneath that.
Oh, for sure. But I think the base premise would be that the gods don't, if the gods are, being worshipped and we can function without them, what's the point of worshiping the gods? I think is probably the thing that they would probably go for. And I think the gods would be upset because they gain power and authority when people worship them. And we could even take it a step further, and maybe the society knew that if people worshipped the gods got stronger. So if everybody stopped, then we could all rule our own lives. And so they created an entire society based off of, I don't want to say rebellion against the gods, but just not worshiping the gods because we don't need them to live and operate. And gain our freedom in the process from the gods. If nobody worships the gods are nothing.
Yeah. What if so I mean they were trying to do things to make themselves become self-reliant, become unable to not needing the gods' help in any way.
Right. So what does that look like, I guess, is what we have to ask ourselves. In the traditional sense, isn't it normally like an arcane society that's flourishing because of magic? That's usually the go-to.
Well, so I was unsure. I think we should go one of the way. I would say it's either should be technology or magic. I think technology would be more interesting because we haven't done it yet.
Yeah, what are we thinking when we say technology? Are we talking like steampunk?
Yeah,
Or are we talking like laser rifles? Like what
I'm
are
thinking
we talking
steampunk.
about? I am too. I think I like that. Like a Dwemer in Skyrim, where they have all this weird technology that they made, but their civilization no longer exists.
Yeah, yeah. I think it is. I think it would be really cool to like discover some of these things hidden. Not you're not going to make the whole campaign term steampunk at one point, but just like
No, no, no.
giving them like I always like the clockwork amulet. It's a small little magic item that just lets you decide to take a 10 instead of rolling. So if you know that a roll of a d10, a roll of
Oh,
10 would work, you could just say, I'm just going to use this amulet. It gives you one
yeah, and it
use.
makes it a 10. I like
Yeah,
that.
it's
I
one
like that a
use,
lot.
and it's a clockwork device. It's an actual magic item in D&D. It's fantastic. It's really interesting because it's. I'm not even gonna go. I'm gonna say I'm not even gonna go for. I'm not even gonna try and get a 20. I'm just gonna take a 10.
Yeah, I know I can succeed if I, like if I just roll average, you know.
And so like
I like
giving them
that.
small
So,
little magic items like that are just steampunk flavored, really.
I mean, even if you did a little bit, even if you went a little bit bigger than that and did like, robot, not a robot, but like a steampunk little, like spider companion thing too. You could even do something small like that, that like functions as a familiar or something like that. You could do, I mean, you could do all sorts of little things that just kind of hint that there was some sort of society that's steampunk. Um, but I think I want to discuss what this civilization looked like because steampunk means a whole lot of different things depending on what world and society, what fantasy you're reading. So, um, do you think the steampunk is kind of like Magic the Gathering and infused a lot with magic? What do you think that looks like? Or do you think it's purely technology based?
I think it's infused with magic to an extent. Not excessively so, but
Yeah.
I think
I think it
they're all
has to be
considered
in
magic
order to like
items.
yeah, I think it has to be a little bit to explain at least how a lot of the things function. So,
Yeah, unless you want to go through the effort of okay, let's figure out when did they get when when did they get the technology to create steam engines, and then did they figure out coal? You're like,
yeah.
no, they didn't figure that
Right.
out because why would they? They have magic.
Yep, absolutely. So I think first the foundation is I think we need big steam engines that like help function and make the society run, and I think those are powered by like arcane generators, right? I think that would probably be what we go to. And I think these big steam engines, what they do is they power all sorts of things that function within the city. So, like for example, I think the main thing that my mind went to would be like the gates are opened by like steam power. So like the engines open the gates, so to speak, when a guard wants to open the gates, right? So they just pull a lever and the gates, open up. Second, I think what would be really fun to do is have like these reflective domes that they have like sunlight, like the daylight spell cast in them. And then they have like these steam valves that keep them warm and like temperature controlled that help grow like huge amount of crops and plants, which is one of the ways they try to become sustaining. Wow, I can't talk. Self
So
sustaining.
they create
There we
grow
go.
lamps.
Yeah, like these big grow. I don't even want to say lamps, but like entire terrain bubbles that they like manage with steam and magical energy, which I think would be really really fun. Third thing that I'm thinking of too is some sort of transportation system. Like I don't know if I want to do like little trolleys or if I want to do like walking
So
steam
I watched
platforms.
a while ago now the Halo TV show. It was pretty interesting. I don't know if I love it, but I definitely
What
watch
TV
another
show?
season. The Halo
Never heard of it.
Master Chief? No, Halo. You've never heard of it?
Okay. I was thinking something completely different. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yes. So they had a TV show for Halo. It was on Paramount Plus. I would definitely watch another season of it. It wasn't. What the writing was actually pretty interesting. They made a few changes that I'm not entirely happy about, but I don't think it. I think it'll work. The on one of the planets they go to, they have like these long cables running around, and it's not even like it's going into space. So they just all around the ceiling of this place, there's all these little like wires running along, and they just have these trams that just go through this wire system up in the ceiling of this large asteroid they're in. And I just think that's cool, having like a like the trams that hang from wires running all over the ceiling of this place.
So then do we do like pipes that carry steam and magical energy that kind of run throughout the whole city, and then there's these little like hanging trolleys or trams that like that you can ride on and take. Mm-hmm. Maybe they even like move, because when they shift the steam from one place to another of the city, the tram follows where the steam goes. Like it pushes some sort of, device that pushes the trolley along. I think that'd be really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Do we see this as like skyscraper civilization? Like we have like, 10-story building, like, I mean, obviously.
Honestly, I'm imagining this underground. I'm imagining they don't have a great understanding of how the gods work, and they're like, maybe we can hide it from them. And so
I like that a lot.
That's why I mentioned like grow lights, as like they have these large caverns that are underground, and they have these lights on the ceiling to kind of help plants still be able to grow.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And then they temperature control them with like steam and like, humidity and moisture from like, steam engines. I like that a lot. Yeah, I think that's great. So they have this big underground civilization.
So they have these little tunnels carved out where these trams run along.
Okay, so now we got to get into the important meat and potatoes, because when I think of underground, I obviously think of like big dwarven halls, like Lord of the Rings dwarven halls. But we obviously want to like branch off from that, right?
I honestly think it's really just like basic houses and structure. Like, I don't think they went any differently than how they did above ground, because they didn't know. And I think before they had time to really like alter how their architecture was designed, before they had time to like figure that out, they got killed. They got massacred.
I'm gonna suggest something completely insane.
Okay.
What if they?
That's insane. How could you say that?
Yeah, what if they've created these huge steam bulldozers and they've just been burrowing through that's how they made these caverns?
Have you seen the Disney movie Atlantis?
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
The mole guy with his like drill truck?
Yes. Like I was thinking they like use like big steam machines like that, and they've pushed and shifted like the mountains, so to speak. They've dug through the earth.
Yep.
I think that's really cool. And then what I'm thinking too is they have like a build team that like stabilizes behind it, and they have all these like copper bracings, because we want it to be steampunky. So they have like all these bracings that hold up, and tubes and stuff that hold up the ceilings.
Totally.
I think that I love that. And could you find one of these big steam machines down in the Underdark?
Yes.
Or just down in the...
Yes.
I think that'd be fun.
And it would be hard to control. It would be just like...
What's that magical item that already exists?
Yeah. You know exactly what I'm thinking of.
The barrel
of Lum the Mad.
Yeah.
Lum the Mad.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think you could find those down there too, right?
The infernal machine of Lum the Mad.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so they have these big steam machines that like push dirt and like essentially build the caverns that they reside in. I'm thinking too, do we have like, okay, this is also kind of partially insane, but so far we're going for it. What if like the caverns are not super stable because they've been pushing it with this, they've just been digging them out with these big trucks. So what if they have like big steam hydraulic system that like holds up the ceiling? So they have like these big pillars that are connected to like big platforms that just like hold up parts of the ceiling. And maybe if when the gods like destroyed them, they just destroyed those big pillars and the ceilings collapsed. And so there's like, a big ruin that still exists, but like a lot of it's caved in and collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
And then from these like steam hydraulic systems, they have these pipes that run in between where the trolleys hang. So these huge columns, I mean, I'm talking massive, that rise up and connect into the ceiling with these big platforms that hold up the earth above them. And between each of these platforms and, just kind of running all throughout are all these little pipes that these trolleys kind of run from. Next thing that I'm thinking of too is, because we kind of want to, if the party even decides to go in here, we want it to be somewhat fleshed out so we can see. How do you see civilization functioning in terms of like housing and stuff? Is this just like they just reside in the cavern because they're like completely covered already, like their whole place is one giant house? Or
no. That's what I was saying. Is I think their architecture hasn't developed at all because I think they got killed before they had because once you spend a bunch of time underground, you'd eventually figure out how you should build your houses to make it work better. I think at this point they're still exactly the same as they were above ground. So I think what we need to do is decide what they were above ground.
Honestly, my first
is it
thought
like Colosseums, like Greek kind of architecture with like the same thing like we think of as like Colosseum and like the
I have two thoughts.
Temples.
I have two thoughts. My first thought is, what if they don't even have structures in the traditional sense? What if these machines that have pushed the earth left like sections that still exist? And they have like sections of stone that they exist, but they've carved into those sections of stone to make housing. So like really like long sections of townhomes that are just made from solid stone, where they've just carved into them because they've pushed a bunch of space, like made roads essentially, so to speak, with these big steam engines in between like pillars of rock that they've just kept as, so like their whole entire society functions within the stone itself too. That's one thought that I had. So you'd walk into this like, open chamber that has tracks that these steam engines run along. So they've put down these like railroads, so to speak. I mean, they're not railroads, but that's the best way I can describe it. A railroad that runs, and they have these steam engines that just push the dirt and, grind through the stone. But it's a left where these tracks are sections of stone that still stand. And in those sections of stone is just carved out homes and, shops and things that they live in. And maybe these tracks just kind of run in, different directions. And so it's just like a big maze of homes and, shops and different buildings that are all carved into the stone. The other thought is I don't know if I like the idea of like, a Roman, or like a Greek or anything like that, like inspired architecture that just exists down. Because I think if they're trying to hide, like they would build stuff as fast as they could, right? As they were trying to like get away. I think the other thing that I thought of would be like just a big open plaza with like dividers. Like they've just set up separate little sections where, people sleep and people, like it hasn't even established yet. Hasn't been fully established yet. Like homes and things haven't been built. It's just like an open space where it's divided into, we have the little marketplace with tents and, things like that. Maybe and they focused on like food and things first. So they have these big domes that keep the food growing, but they haven't really established exactly what their architecture looks like in terms of homes.
Mm-hmm.
But I also love the idea of we do something different in terms of like it's community based, and each of these big domes that were created, we have these like stone rings that just surround them where like homes live, and people go into these domes to, farm and, grow stuff. So I like these separate dome structures being built with these rings around them.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
And then I'm thinking in between each of these rings, you have strings of lights and, pipes and trolleys that run in between these big standing structures of stone that they've built and carved their houses into. And they have steam, they have pipes and, wiring that runs all throughout these structures that provides, hot water and, all sorts of stuff that just go through the city.
Mm-hmm.
I'm even thinking like in between these trolley tracks, they have like steam cleaners, these big, like instead of the drill. They have like these versions of them that the exact same size, but they just
I'm imagining
shoot steam
like
and clean the
large
streets.
Zambonis.
Yeah, 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 and they just clean the streets, the rock beneath, and polish it as it, every Tuesday or whatever is like,
Yeah.
the street cleaning day. You put out your trash and whatever, and these big things push through and just grab it all, and they push it out somewhere, like maybe down like a giant trench that it just falls into the earth.
Okay, now this is unrealistic, but in our fantasy world, do you think it is a hole all the way down to the center of the earth, and they just drop it into the kind of the molten pit?
Burns into the lava.
Yeah. No, yeah, maybe so.
Okay, what if we... Okay, what... This might sound insane, but what if we connected the demons, like where they reside, with this society? Like, what if we did like a version of the dwarves that dug too greedily, but instead they've connected to the other like world that we have, and this is where possibly demons could arise from, which could also be one of the reasons why the gods destroyed them. But I don't know if I like that. So
I think they're on a different plane. I don't think they're on this plane.
Okay, cool. But I don't know. We could do some sort of incinerator. What if, like, I don't know, is there a way to make steam so hot that it can burn and destroy and incinerate everything? Like, does it fall down this, like, big chute and then, like, they blast, like, super pressured heat and steam down into the hole and incinerate everything?
It'd be funny. They have a portal somewhere, and they drop the trash and debris and stuff they don't care about in it, and it appears on the surface of the planet. So they're saying, hey, we're gonna hide down here, and the world where the gods are, we're creating a landfill on your world. Well, we're gonna stay down here underneath.
Actually, what I could see that's similar to that is they have like a big platform that they just push all the debris on, and then the platform just like they turn on the steam engine, and the steam just like pushes it up through the big hole they've created up to the surface world. And then they have like machines that just push it off to the side. And so like maybe somewhere hidden in the mountains, there's just a big trash field, debris field of like pipes and waste and refuse. And that's how they got discovered. I mean, that could be something that happened.
I don't think we should make it that be how they got discovered.
Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. But I do like
the idea of them.
They're keeping their underground clean, but they have no.
Yeah, they don't care how the gods' world feels. Yeah.
Yeah, like they just shove all this junk and it lifts up into the surface, and more machines push it off to the side. What race are these people? Just all sorts of races, or?
I think they started with humans. And they were like,
yeah, I mean, honestly, I
think this is what made them think just humans suck. So they started with just humans, and they were like, no, humans suck. Let's create orcs and elves and things that'll at least be good. But they didn't get rid of all the humans because some of them weren't going against them.
I don't know. I just think I like the idea of it's just like a big melting pot of people. I think I just like it as a society of.
That's fine. That works too.
Just a big melting pot, I think. Because I think if we focus on like a race, I don't know. I think the gods in general just don't care too much about race because the worship is the same power for everyone. So I think everybody just kind of intermingles and intermixes, and I think the society's probably no different. They just gather whoever doesn't want to worship a god, so to speak.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I like it. I like it a lot.
So, before we end, we gotta create one more thing.
How it was destroyed?
Well, we already know that it was a slaughter. It was a massacre. And some of the gods chose to forget. Others did not. It was a... but I think what we need to do is... If we have what can the PCs learn from going there to the ruins of this place?
I think there's a couple things. One, I think they can probably find, like journals or writings about what life was like before the gods took over. I think two, they can probably learn some of the atrocities that happened under the gods.
Mm-hmm.
Three, they can find cool stuff.
And what would be like one cool thing you would give the party for finding us?
Boy, I don't know. I'd probably make something. I'd probably make some sort of like steam sword or like some sort of, mechanical engine that they can ride around on, or I don't know, some like a motorcycle. I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
You'd give them a motorcycle?
Yeah, like those little like in Descent to Avernus, they have like those cool
no, I know
that they made.
And I always thought they were horrible.
Yeah, I don't know, something like that. That'd be kind of fun. Or maybe like a piece of an airship, maybe, or like a steam engine for an airship. I don't know.
Cool. And then give them the opportunity to build
or like a gun that shoots rocks because of steam. So it's like a special weapon, something like that. I don't know.
Interesting.
There'd be all sorts of stuff you could think of.
Well, I think that'll do it for episode 99 of Dungeoneered. 99, Aaron. 99.
We're almost at triple digits.
What do we do? We got to figure out what we do next episode.
I don't know. Big 100 is not as special as 69, so I don't really know what we're gonna do.
I have an idea. Well, thank you all for listening. And
you're just gonna leave us hanging? You're gonna say you have an idea and just leave us there?
Yeah, I'm not gonna tell. I mean, I might tell you, but I'm not gonna tell the. Actually, no, I'm not gonna tell you. No, you're gonna be left hanging too, unless you come up with a better idea and tell me it.
I'm about to lead an audience mutiny, and we're gonna take over this podcast. We're gonna take over this podcast from your bad leadership.
Well, thank you all for listening, and if you listen to us on any podcasting apps with ratings and reviews, it really helps if you write a review about the show. Let us know what you think, and also helps the apps that you post on know that we are there are people listening and paying attention, and they'll promote us a little more. If you want to write to us, you can write to us at dungeoneered@hotmail.com. We'd love to hear from you if you have ideas for topics, Lukewarm Opens. You want to talk to us about something cool you've made, something cool we've made, we'd love to hear it all. Anything else you can think of, Aaron?
Yeah, show your support for my mutiny in the comments.
I don't think they have comments on their episodes, but if they do,
oh no,
show your support for the mutiny. #mutant power. Also #turtles in a half shell. That's definitely the mutiny hashtags. TMNT is also another good one for the mutiny.
No, it's not. No,
it's definitely is. That's what TMNT stands for. It stands for the mutiny.
#control. #usurp Josh. This is what we need.
Well, as I always say.
See, this is another reason
always remember to be the sharpest barrel in the bunch. See you next time.
Bye. Support my cause.